This is a Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, Santa Clara County Finance and Government Operations Committee, regular meeting at 2 p.m.
This is the call to order for the March 18th, 2025 meeting of the Finance and Government Operations Committee. Welcome, everyone. It's my second meeting ever, so can't promise a smooth ride, but we'll get there. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll to establish the presence of a quorum?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
I'm here.
Chairperson Young.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good afternoon and welcome to today's FGOC meeting. My name is Betty Young and I'm the chairperson of the committee. At this time, I'd like to ask our friends and neighbors and audience members to please turn off or mute electronic devices, including cell phones that may interrupt the meeting. And the first item on the agenda is public comment. This item is reserved for persons who wish to address the committee on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee that is not on this agenda. Okay.
We do have a couple of requests in the room. We have Dennis and Chris. Please approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Members of the public who wish to address the committee at this time, you could do so by submitting a request to speak form if you are in chambers, or raising your hand icon if you're attending virtually. And there are forms. Okay. Thank you, sir. If you just give us a moment here to collect all the request to speak forms.
Could you stand at the podium, sir, and speak so we can hear you? Yes, that's where the microphone is. It's embedded in the podium. Thank you.
Okay, so before you begin, sir, hang on, Colin.
Let me see how many I have here. 1, 2. We have 8 in the room and 3 online currently.
Great, so we will allot 2 minutes per speaker. We'll start with the speakers in the room first and then move to our virtual speakers. The queue for public comment will close when the first speaker begins speaking. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Dennis. I'm here basically to address the issue of ranked choice voting. I know that's not on the agenda, but I do understand that the Board of Supervisors will be addressing this issue. My concerns here are basically dealing with trust in our elected officials. Essentially, when you're talking about ranked choice voting, from my understanding, and I don't have just a simplistic view of it, I've been an observer for elections in Santa Clara County for quite a while here, especially down at the Registrar of Voters office. But when you say ranked choice voting, it means essentially vote early, vote often. It's not actually a one-person vote system. It's just not. And the reality is that the trust of the leadership that we have as elected officials is really in question, not just in California, but all across the country, especially when you're using electronic systems or computerized systems to count the ballots. The reality is that when we're talking about ranked choice voting, the overall situation is that most people do not understand what ranked choice voting is. There's a great deal of confusion about this. And when you're turning a system that they already do not understand into a system that's even more confusing, you're going to create I guess you could call it a wasp nest that's ready to burst. Because the trust issue is a very important issue for elected officials to consider at this point. We already have a serious concern about how the computers are being manipulated and utilized to go in one way or the other. So if we can at least have this as a way to speak clearly to the General Board of Supervisors, we'd like to take this up. One of the main things we're concerned about, and you'll hear from other people, is the number of lobbyist meetings that have been occurring here. And I don't recall any other citizens being concerned.
And let me call a few names up to the queue. We have Jean, Robert Hobbs, and Josephine Kawanami. Please approach the podium. And we'll go 3.
Yeah, okay, my name is Robert Hobbs, and I just want to bring up the fact that Measure F passed in 1989 as an instant runoff voting system. to make the county, the makeup of the county is very different now than in 1998. And is it assumed today that the voter makeup would still welcome ranked choice voting in the county? Measure F, original stated, shall the county of Santa Clara add section 208 stating nothing in this charter shall preclude the Board of Supervisors from offering an instant runoff voting system for November general election, which eliminates the need for runoff elections when such technology is available. I think it's kind of important to point out that there was no ranked choice wording back in Measure F at all. It was referred to as instant vote off. Okay, in the aftermath of that, AB 1227 was approved in 2023, which allowed the County of Santa Clara Board of Supervisors or voters via citizen initiative to adopt the ordinance establishing ranked choice voting. My concern is because of the difference in the makeup of the county, maybe this ought to be approved by the citizens. That's my feeling. And I guess the other thing is I want to bring up very quickly, does the county anticipate any loss of federal funds that might inhibit budget crunches for you this year? Thank you.
We also, in addition to Jean and Josephine, we also have Shi and Sue. Please approach your podium.
Hello, I'm here to oppose the RCV in Santa Clara County. For several years now, I have been a volunteer ballot processing observer during elections, spending many hours doing so, primarily at the ROV. One part of the process that I observed was adjudication, where teams of 2 workers had to determine voters' intentions because their ballots have been rejected by the scanning software. That in itself is problematic. In the November 2024 election in Santa Clara County, over 765,000 ballots were cast. Of those, over 597,000 cards had to be adjudicated. So even with our present system, there is a high rate of voter confusion and misunderstanding. In Alameda County, a study of 2024 voting records found that with RCV, the risk of voting error is exponentially higher. It is well documented that American voters lack information about candidate policies, even when voting for one person. Excuse me. And yet, with RCV, they are expected to vote and rank all candidates in a race with confidence. It is unlikely that voters will be able to do so. Many voters do not rank every candidate, leaving blanks on their ballots, possibly causing them to be rejected. An analysis of 96 RCV elections from across the country shows the system produces false majorities, frequently exhausts more than 10% of ballots cast on election day, and further disenfranchises voters who are less likely to vote. In our constitutional republic, a simple, fair, and secure voting system is fundamental to democratic elections. It is clear that plurality elections are much simpler and easier to understand than races determined, calculated, not counted, by RCV. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Josephine Kawanami. I am reading this for Georgine Scott Codiga, who could not be present here today. My name is Georgine Scott Codiga. I have worked elections for over 35 years in both Los Angeles and Santa Clara counties. I am here to urge you, based on documented evidence and my past experiences with Santa Clara County ROV, to reject implementing ranked choice voting. While working the March 2020 election in SCC as a trainer and a vote center lead, I observed and reported to proper authorities fraud, chaos, lack of organization, incompetence, lack of procedures, equipment malfunctions, lack of properly trained employees at the SCC ROV. Certified letters to the director of ROV were unanswered. Documented complaints went unanswered. I strongly urge this committee to review all documented evidence of the SCC ROV past negligence and failure to correct its issues before considering implementing any new programs, let alone ones as potentially harmful to the voters as ranked choice voting. Please review the following reports before considering ranked choice voting. The Civil Grand Jury's investigation 2003-2004 into the physical security of the voting machines. The 3 audits done by SCC County and the State Auditor in 2010 addressing the SCC ROV's errors and failures to implement comprehensive policies and procedures. For the record, you have been warned. The people of Santa Clara County will not tolerate any more incompetence or bad decisions when it comes to our votes. Thank you, Georgine Scott Codiga.
If we also could ask Chris, Robert, and Alice to please join the queue. Thank you.
My comments are also on ranked choice voting, short for RCV. Often, RCV advocates and promoters in the county use the following claims and arguments when responding to public comments or for public education. RCV has been around for a very long time in the country in municipal elections, state elections, and in college elections of student bodies. RCV is so simple and easy. Even my 80-year-old mother understands it. RCV is like when you order ice cream, you put in a second choice. If the first choice runs out, you get the second one. You see? You still get the ice cream you want. So wonderful. Today, I'd like to debunk these claims and arguments. 1, if it has been around for a long time, is the legitimate precedence to add RCV, then why don't we go back to vote in person and not vote by mail? Vote in person has been around since 1788 for 237 years and is a proven method for safe, simple, common sense, transparent, and no waste spending elections. In person with paper ballot and ID voting one day election is the only proven way to restore public trust in our election system. 2, RCV is anything but simple and easy. I challenge anyone saying this to explain to the public how our votes are calculated in each round of ranked tabulation/calculation with different RCV methods and 11 or more configurations in the voting systems machines that would derive more than 270,000 results. I challenge those who oversimplify RCV and completely mislead the public to explain what happens to election results after voters' votes are exhausted, which is how RCV works. Thank you.
My name is Sue Bazzini, and I'm here to oppose the implementation of ranked choice voting in Santa Clara County. People are already disenfranchised because our current voting process is broken. Elections fail to follow established laws, provide effective means of determining voter identity, citizenship, and eligibility to vote, provide protected chain of custody of authentic ballots, use equipment that complies with the law and critical infrastructure security standards, and allow legal required transparency. Ranked choice voting will add more distrust to the process and will further disenfranchise voters. It's complicated, hard to understand, and in the end, it's the computer system and the way it's programmed that determines the results of an election. It's a black box that is neither transparent, observable, or auditable. That means different candidates can be declared the winner depending on how the machine has been configured. In a regular election, the person who receives the most votes is declared the winner. A single vote can make the difference in who wins and who loses an election. One person's vote matters. With RCV, that is not the case. The impact of a single vote is a function of all the rankings cast by the other voters. There are several variations, but it always involves the voter ranking multiple candidates who are running for office. The results are tallied, and if a single candidate does not receive over 50% of the vote, the candidate who received the lowest percentage of votes is removed, and the second choice selections move up and the race is tabulated again. This process continues until one candidate receives over 50% and is declared the winner. Again, the winner is determined by the settings that have been configured in the tabulator, which can lead to different results. Elections are naturally adversarial. You have candidates competing against each other. It's imperative that election officials strictly follow the law, or large groups of people will never trust in the outcomes of the election. Observation of the process and transparency is the key to public trust, not configuration settings. The U.S. Constitution guarantees qualified citizens the right to choose their representatives and the guarantee of a Republican system of government. With RCV, we would not know if the will of the majority of the voters is actually being met. Please vote no against RCV.
Hi, Chris Novak, a 25-year resident of Santa Clara County. I am not necessarily smart enough to know ranked choice voting, so I asked the experts, AI. So part of it is asking the right question as well. How does ranked choice voting harm liberty? 1, increased complexity and reduced voter autonomy. 2, decreased political freedom through strategic voting. 3, increased government control over the electoral process. 4, potential for more coercive campaigning and less personal choice. 5, disenfranchisement through exhausted ballots. 6, potential for complicated legal challenges and dispute. Question number 2, how does ranked choice voting contribute to voter fraud? In short, I'm just giving you the conclusion here. In short, while the risk of voter fraud with RCV exists primarily due to complexity and confusion, it's not inherent to the system itself. The same risks could apply to any voting system if it's not properly managed and safeguarded. So just if you bring that in, there's still opportunity for manipulation, and we still need accountability and improvement in the other systems. Number 3, what are the worst aspects of ranked choice voting? Complexity and confusion, increased cost, and administrative burden. Spoiler effect still exists. Strategic voting can still happen. Potential for exhausted ballots. Some of these are repetitive, but getting some of the same cautions with different questions help to show how ranked choice voting is problematic. My third and last question was, what is a better method of voting compared to ranked choice voting? They give a list. Conclusion is, the best alternative to RCV depends on the context of the election and what you're trying to achieve. For simplicity and clear outcomes, plurality or approval voting. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Robert. Why are we considering ranked choice voting when it has such a very poor track record for success? Oakland is currently trying to repeal it and recently had to recall their mayor because of public outcry. San Francisco was trying to repeal it, and their mayor was rebuked in a re-election and even was being recalled at the time. Alaska is attempting to repeal it. Areas in Colorado, Vermont, North Carolina, Washington, and of course California, just to name a few, are trying to repeal it or already have. The people do not want it. I don't know where you're getting that. It doesn't work. Complexity and voter confusion, increased errors, more expensive by a lot, longer ballot counting times, more opportunities to game the system by ranking against certain candidates. It's been proven, which is why it's been recalled in many places. Shows it's actually a disadvantage to minority and lesser known candidates, and it's been proven. It's not hand recountable or audible, despite the lies. Don't let lobbyist dollars run this county, and by evidence of the fact on-record meetings with this body, don't let it run the county, please. Vote no on ranked choice voting.
Hi, I'm Alice. On March 11th Board of Supervisor meeting, I asked the Board of Supervisor why you're considering switching our election to use ranked choice voting. What problem are you trying to solve, and who's asking for this? No regular Santa Clara County citizen I know are aware of what you're planning. When asked, most people don't even know what ranked choice voting is. I am shocked to discover that based on record, this turned out to be a complete lobbyist-driven initiative with the Board of Supervisors meeting various well-funded ranked choice voting advocacy organizations and lobbyists over 66 plus times in the past couple of years. I am even more disappointed to find out that case, which is supposed to represent citizens of this county and provide impartial analysis to this board, turned out to be more like ranked choice voting advisory commission for election, because it was paneled by members with direct tie to RCV organizations who are incapable of providing you an unbiased recommendation due to conflict of interest. I remember this board has repeatedly communicated your commitment to protect minorities' interests. Multiple citizen-initiated analysis on Oakland election has definitively proven ranked choice voting not only did not help minorities, it actually unfairly suppressed and create higher error rates among the seniors and less affluent voters due to its complexity and difficulty for them to understand how to make their vote count. We do not want to be like Oakland or San Francisco. We did not ask for this, and this does not benefit people of Santa Clara County. As our representative for this county, I urge you to table this consideration and vote no to ranked choice voting. Thank you.
We also have 2 requests to speak through Zoom. The next speaker is Brian. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wanted to direct my comments to Supervisor Ellenberg. And first, I would like to start by thanking her for her leadership. And when the Case Commission had brought this request to this committee, one of the things that you had asked for is budgetary numbers. You had asked for some form of a risk assessment. And I attended the Case Commission meeting in person a couple of weeks ago, and I'd queried the commission if they had done any investigation of what's taking place in Alameda County. And one of the commissioners was somewhat belligerent, and he threw the Alameda County Registrar of Voters under the bus, which was quite shocking. But really, the purpose of my message to you, and one that I hope that you would evaluate as you consider how you're going to vote on this issue, is this something that is hugely important to Santa Clara County? It's a change in the way that we vote. And to think that this Case Commission, all they have provided is a recommendation with configuration settings. They've done no technology risk assessment. I've asked them, they haven't provided it. They haven't looked at the outcomes of elections in our neighboring counties that are very similar to our size and scale. Frankly, they haven't done their homework. And I think for them to come to this board with a recommendation and not having done a full assessment is irresponsible, and it's pretty disappointing. And I do hope that they can come to you with some solid information. I suspect they won't. I sent you an email earlier today. There's plenty of documentation in there. There's videos from Alameda County voters and registrars.
Final speaker is Chin Fen. You will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Chen Fen, and I would like to say again, like last time, in the Board of Supervisor meeting, instant runoff voting is not equal to ranked choice voting. In 1998 Measure F, what voter approved was instant runoff voting, not ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is much more complicated. Ranked choice voting profile has a total 14 configuration. Each configuration has 2 to 3 selections. Therefore, it can generate 276,000 permutation and combination, which also means that there could be a potential 276,000 different election results in one single election race. If I will be the candidate, it is not acceptable. My request, in order to have a better understanding, I would like to have a simulation modeling, and which represent all voting scenario models with 276,000 combination of settings. and to be provided to the public for review. Please include simulation assumption and use cases, raw data, algorithms, and result in formats. Thank you.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you, Colin. And as a reminder that we do have a policy of decorum in the board chambers, and please refrain from applauding, cheering, or heckling anybody who may be providing public comment. We want to make sure this is a safe space and a welcoming space for all perspectives and opinions. Thank you. At this time, we're going to move to approval of the consent calendar and any changes to the committee agenda. Vice Chair Ellenberg, do you have any changes to the agenda or consent?
I have no changes. I'm happy to move approval of the consent calendar as published.
I have one item. I'd like to add item 6 to the consent calendar, if that's okay.
That's fine. Happy to amend my agenda to include that.
Thank you.
Amend my motion to include that.
Yes, and second.
There are no requests to speak in the room. There are no requests to speak on Zoom. Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Fantastic. So item 4 is to receive the quarterly report from the Office of the County Executive relating to the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds. Welcome. And does staff have a presentation today?
Good afternoon, Chair Young, Consuelo Hernandez, Deputy County Executive. I'm joined by representatives of FMC. This is our standard quarterly update related to the fairgrounds. We do not have a formal presentation, but I did want to share that over the last several months, this committee previously requested information related to very specific operational questions for the FMC team, and those were included in your packet. And the team is here to answer any questions. In terms of progress for our other 3 non-FMC related projects, there isn't a substantial update. We continue to work with the San Jose State University on their proposed project for the Speed City. They have recently gone through some staff changes and have asked for a little bit of time so that they can sort through who would be the project manager on their project. So we hope to have more information for that project at our next meeting. And with that, happy to answer any questions you might have, either directed to county administration or to the FMC team.
I'm going to turn to the clerk to see if there are any public comments on this item, and then we'll go to discussion.
There are no requests to speak.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair? Any?
I'm going to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
And then I'll share.
Thank you. I thank you for the report, and it's good to see a financial shift to the positive and the return of the Cirque to the fairgrounds. We've been promoting it extensively through our social media and our newsletter and other channels. I did notice that the continued security costs due to the RV parked on site. I'd like to know what our plans are for that particular site.
Thank you for the question. I believe our administration and the Office of the County Council are working on an update for the board through a confidential memo. Happy to defer to County Council's office or take that conversation offline.
We are happy to provide an off-agenda memorandum to FGOC or to the individuals on FGOC that we can provide such a memorandum to.
Thank you. And I guess that the last item is I had the chance to tour the property. Thank you, Celine, for that tour that day. And saw that our paintball operator had left their mark on us. Do we have any plans in the near future to help remediate that portion of the fairgrounds?
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Celine Duarte here, Co-Interim Director of the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds Management Corporation. Yes, we are in the process of working towards an agreement to go ahead and move forward with the cleanup of that area.
Oh, great, all great updates all around. That's it for my questions today, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I read in the report that you approved the contract to remove materials that were left by the paintball tenant. It's about $500,000. Do you anticipate that being covered within your operational budget this year, or is this something you might find that you look to the county toward the end of the year to cover?
No, actually, we are looking to do that here in the next couple of months. So we're looking to fund that with FMC's monies. The hope is to have that area cleared and cleaned up, and then we'll see what lays underneath. But we're not looking at this time for any funds from the county to help with that process.
Excellent, thank you. Could you remind me, Consuelo, what prompted the Parks and Rec feasibility study that we'll be getting in the spring? What is that looking at?
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. If you recall, there've been in the last 4 years or so a number of requests from the board, a number of requests through FGOC for these miscellaneous requests to look at the fairgrounds. So there was, initially in 2019 and 2020, FMC was charged with looking at and accepting different proposals. That's where Cricket and the earthquakes came. And then through a conversation at FGOC, there's a request to the administration to explore open space uses in the balance of the fairgrounds. But as you can imagine, it's been really hard to think about the different uses at the fairgrounds without a vision or an intent behind what we ultimately want to see at the fairgrounds. And so really, we can't complete that portion of the project until some of the other recreational with the San Jose State University and or with earthquakes. Once those settle, then we'll get a better sense of what that is. I will also share that the study unfortunately neglected to include participation from the FMC team because now I've learned and understand that the space that we were exploring is actually used for flexible space that is used when, for instance, the parking lot across the street is used in operation, then that space is used for parking. And so we need to just understand the implications of those policy decisions for future uses.
Thank you. James, did you want to add before I go on?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, I can't remember the exact dates, but I think the original origin of that particular analysis actually came from a referral many years ago from former supervisors Cortese and Chavez to look at park designation for portions of the fairgrounds and potential utilization of parks fund resources at the fairgrounds as well. So I think that was the original origin of that.
So an analysis of those possibilities are what we can expect to see this spring.
I think it morphed a bit over time, given the significant constraints on the park charter funds resources itself. But that was the original genesis of what has ended up over many years kind of morphing into this analysis.
Here's where I am, and this isn't a news flash, but I really do want to reignite this energy. We have seen many project proposals come and go, probably as many times as the jail conversation has come and gone. This is an asset of, I think, incredible value. It sits amidst the most densely populated district in the city of San Jose. This is a population, as we tend to normalize saying, that has long been underserved. And I think we really need, and when I say we, I fully understand that I mean the Board of Supervisors, really needs to commit to thinking through how we maximize this space in a way that first benefits the surrounding community and then more broadly functions as a regional attraction. And none of us are around long enough with the 12-year term limits to see the full arc of history. But I think it has been just such a long time, and the community has waited for such a long time. And I would love to see this district and this community really become just a gem and place of pride. And that looks like different things in different time periods. And our economic situation right now also presents both some new challenges and some new opportunities. But I would posit that maybe when we are having the strategic planning discussions, that there is some conversation dedicated specifically to how we maximize this really important resource. And I'm, of course, very, very interested in your thoughts as it sits in your district, and I imagine that as eager as I am, you are 10 times more so.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So, I mean, the fairgrounds is in the heart of District 2, and everything you just said just spoke directly to my heart. I'm going to say it speaks directly to a lot of the concerns of the neighbors there. And when I say neighbors, I'm talking about, just as it was pointed out earlier, the most densely populated portion of the city of San Jose and possibly the county. It's an area of extremely high need, and our community there has waited long enough for us to be able to move something. Prioritizing our investments there with community benefit leading, that is how I envision this process going. But of course, I understand that there are a lot of smart people in the room who will also be thought partners in how we can make this a sustainable endeavor that could basically be financially independent. So I agree. I think that the strategic planning session, I think I would take every opportunity where we can center fairgrounds as a discussion point. I am also very well aware, having been a lifelong resident of this district and a board aide and a member of this county organization, that there are non-county entities who are more than ready with suggestions and recommendations for the fairgrounds that does not put community benefit at the forefront, or the county's interest at the front of it. So Consuelo, I would love to ask you, and I also want to say you don't have to answer today, but I would like to hear from you and team that what would be the how can we frame this discussion at the strategic planning session, and also how can we continue to frame this discussion in the future to move towards the points that you raised earlier of an economic development plan and also a vision process. I know that our current financial state is a little unknown, but that doesn't prevent us from planning, visioning, and developing a work plan or next steps to make sure that we move towards building something incredibly beautiful and of added value to our community there who is lacking access to open space, green space, safe spaces, recreational spaces, and economic development opportunities.
Yeah, I would just say, add a couple comments. I've been sitting with FGOC since 2012. And it's very heartening to hear the comments from the committee. We've had prior discussions. We had, I think, a very good discussion several months back about looking, for example, at the structure and the relationship between the county organization and FMC, which I think has had an unfortunate byproduct over the last several decades of diffusing responsibility and connection between the county organization on the one hand, which has responsibility associated with the long-term planning and utilization of the space, and FMC, which has responsibility for the day-to-day current operation management of the site and the facility, and I think has left the ability to actually bring forward thoughtful proposals to achieve exactly what you both shared in a space, in a place where it hasn't had staff level ownership. And so instead there have been some handfuls of projects that have been brought forward sporadically here and there over the years, but not as part of any comprehensive examination or ownership on the part of county administration, which doesn't have responsibility for the day-to-day operation of the fairgrounds. And we did get a favorable recommendation from the committee several months back, different composition, but from the committee several months back to bring forward to the board an item related to that structure, and so we're working on that. I feel very excited with Deputy County Executive Consuelo Hernandez in place, and with her particular background, not only of success in moving forward numerous projects, but her background also as a planner, to think holistically. And I think we have a really wonderful opportunity to actually bring the pieces together and do so through conversation led by this committee, and move things forward on the fairgrounds. We have not unlocked the fairgrounds as the extraordinary asset that it really is. You know, for our county organization relative to other counties in the state, we are, as an organization, a land poor county. What I mean by that is we don't actually own a lot of real estate. The fairgrounds represents such a unique and distinct opportunity and a part of our county and community that we otherwise deliver so much service because there's such incredible need. And I think there's tremendous possibility by thinking those things through. So I look forward to being in a position to actually bring some things forward. And my time sitting with this committee, obviously in different roles over the years, there really have never been any, I can't think of any, administration proposals with respect to the fairgrounds. And I again attribute that to the fact that there's been this disconnect in the governance and the structure. And so I think dealing with that issue will put us in a totally different position, because otherwise, to the point that you made, Supervisor Ellenberg, projects of the type that I think we all would like to see do exceed the time horizon of any given member of the board. If you know, for multiple phases, right? Certain things can happen, but you know, over multiple phases. And so you actually do need that continuity of ownership by the organization itself to envision and realize a long-term plan for the fairgrounds. And that's what I think we have an opportunity to tackle. I'm seeing some nodding heads from FMC as well. And, you know, it's a tough thing because we're talking about changing that relationship and that structure, that governance and oversight. But I think there is an awareness on all sides of that the current system, maybe it was the right decision in the 90s when it was created. I'm not second guessing that, but that there's an opportunity now, given what we know now, given where we are now, to reset that, bring the pieces together, and have both the long-term piece and the day-to-day operation collectively supervised and managed in a way that then can really move these pieces forward. So that's what we're excited about. We've been having some conversations, and we look forward to bringing some concrete things forward through FGOC, obviously ultimately to the Board of Supervisors.
Do you have an approximation of when that will come to FGOC?
Well, I think one of the first things that we want to bring forward is actually the structural piece to the board, because that's already been to committee. And you know, we've been trying to manage it in the context of everything else that's been on our plate the last couple months. And so that's just a question of identifying the right board meeting to bring that item to in the midst of, you know, regional and budget and everything else that's been happening. But that's queued up, so we have to just put those pieces together and bring that forward. And then I think from there, at the subsequent, these are quarterly reports to FGOC. I think in the subsequent quarterly reports, we can then start moving the other pieces forward.
Thank you. Well, I've been sitting with FGOC since January. So, speaking of,
yeah, I'm the old timer around here.
but you know, speaking of the arc of history and the time frames here, I truly believe, with a lot of optimism and faith, that we are able to see something develop within the next 12 years, because that is the possible maximum amount of time that I get to be with y'all. But I'll always be a District 2 resident. So let's get this going.
100%. And I think there's a lot of possibility, like I said.
Yeah. And Consuela, just want to reiterate, really look forward to your thoughts about what operational next steps we can take following the restructuring or alongside the restructuring to be able to get us within a determined timeline or goal timeline of being able to identify vision, economic development plan, and then what possibilities we have to be able to develop this area. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you to staff. Good to see you.
I just wanted to confirm that we take public comment on that. Okay, got it.
And do we need a motion to receive report for this?
It's your discretion, Chairperson Jung. You can move past it without a vote, or you can take a vote if you'd like.
I love votes. Motion to receive report.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, up next we have item 5, and that's to receive the quarterly report from the Social Services Agency relating to collection and reporting of programmatic and service data for the Santa Clara County Children's Budget.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Young and Vice Chair Ellenberg. Sarah Duffy, Deputy Director, Social Services Agency, joined here with Karina Alvarez, Senior Management Analyst. We do not have a presentation here. We can provide a brief update and or answer questions, whatever is your preference.
I welcome a brief update. Thank you.
Sure. So in terms of updates, our office is, the Office of Children and Families Policy within the Social Services Agency is in the midst of working very closely across the county with various county departments to collect detailed information regarding programs and contracts that serve children and families. So this is an enhanced effort to expand the information that we have around funding source, around types of programs, and around the priority populations served by the county in programs for children and families. So we are doing that right now, and that will continue through June. In fact, yesterday there were 2 informational sessions that were held to introduce programs, to introduce the program and contact information data collection forms to department liaisons. So that happened yesterday. Feedback that we've received from the departments is going to be used to consider whether we need to update any of the forms. And then we're just in data collection mode, which will continue throughout June. And we'll do more deeper dive meetings with departments that may need some additional support in entering the data. Some of the departments in the county have quite a bit of funding and programs for children and families. So that's happening through June. And then we will analyze all the information collected. That will be done by early fall. And then the results will be included in the the next iteration of the children's budget. So that's the update for this quarter.
I'll turn to my vice chair for, I'm sorry. Colin, do we have any public comment on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
Okay, vice chair?
Thank you, and thank you, Sarah, for the update. Can you say a little bit more about what you literally mean when you say that you'll analyze the data once it has all been collected? What does that mean in this context, and what will you be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been working to develop dashboards of the information that's collected. We've done that with the pilot data collected by the Division of Equity and Social Justice. So we're going to look at the categories of services that are included in the programs and services that are identified in the children's budget. So we'll have an interactive dashboard. We also are looking to see how departments are capturing information around priority populations. So this would be categories like ages of children or families that are served, demographic data, if there are geographic regions that are prioritized with services, we'll capture that. We need to look at what the quality of the data is that comes back. Different departments collect data in different, or categorize data in different ways. So it's an exploratory year, but we do have a dashboard that's been developed where we can put all of the data into it and look at it in summary form, which will be quite helpful. So that's what we mean by analysis, is taking all of the information back, cleaning it, putting it both into the dashboard and then into some summary tables that we can include in the children's budget.
Thank you. I think what I'm looking for, and perhaps inartfully saying, is how do we use it? I'm hearing more of a categorization of data so that we can look at it, and I know we share the same interest. So what I'm trying to get at is ultimately, what will we be looking for or looking to measure to determine that children and families are doing better in one of any number of categories as a result of our investments, and where we are not seeing improvements, what shifts in investments are recommended? And I'm not sure we've even kind of landed on what the metrics would be. Are we using maybe the children's data book, or are we not there yet?
That's a great question, and that's right. I think what we want to do is be able to look at the information that we gather in the children's budget that we understand as what are the different services that the county is funding for children and families against population level data. So one of the really useful resources that we have in terms of understanding kind of the numbers of children and families in Santa Clara County, the demographics, the needs, for example, the income levels, what we understand around needs for various services is captured in the data book. So that's a very useful resource that is going to be released in April.
Right.
So that's a great kind of pairing to look at against the children's budget, which identifies what the county is providing in terms of services. We also have fairly robust data, and some of the information in the children's data book comes from the public health department. So we can look at a lot of the resources that they have around, for example, maternal, child, and adolescent health, and see what kind of outcomes we have in those spaces, and then what are we doing within the county to provide services. So that pairing of the population level data, which helps us come up with information where we could develop indicators or outcomes, then can be paired with the categorization and the deeper information on the county services. So I think we want to pair those two types of information together, and that can help us make decisions as a county or within agencies around what we're funding and how we're funding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have more, but let's hear from James Williams.
Yeah, these questions always kind of raise the kind of quintessential thing that we all wish we had when it comes to decision making regarding programs, which is the ability to assess and tie specific program and its intervention with a change in what's happening, and to determine efficacy of that. The challenge in this space is, because of the interwoven nature of the programs and the population level data, I don't think it's realistic that we're going to be in a position to do that kind of programmatic analysis other than in the context of very specific pilot programs where you have devoted significant and extraordinary resources to specific programmatic level evaluation as part of the design of the program. Where I see this data as being more practically useful is less for evaluative purposes and more for identification of gaps. So from a big picture perspective, if you look at kind of county services and you look at, okay, where are their needs? For example, ages, geographic areas, specific types or categories, where you can then say, maybe we need to we're not seeing other entities fill those needs, or there are areas that are primary county responsibility, and identification of then places where we may want to shift resources or in a situation where we're in a position of augmenting resources, to add to help fill those specific types of gaps. And I think that's a more practical and realistic use of matching the budget-related information, which is what we spend money on, with the data piece of what are we seeing in the community in terms of need, gaps, and areas where there's continued significant struggle.
Thanks. I appreciate that perspective as well. I would not presume certainly that because a gap exists that it needs to be filled. It could be that the gap exists because there is not a need in that particular area. And again, I know that we drive everything through equity rather than equality, so that's not likely to be a real worry. And I think also, and I am not a data analyst and do not play one on TV, but just kind of thinking about some of the risks inherent with population level data. I remember hearing at the State of the Valley last week the fact that the average household wealth in our county is $2 million. That's pretty awesome. But a third of our children are at risk of food security. So getting that population data would suggest that we're all doing pretty well.
Yeah, and I don't think what Ms. Sarah was referring to population level data. You know, we have that data often by census tract, right? Mm-hmm. So we weren't talking about just the average across the county. And you know, when I was referring to gaps, I was referring to where we see a problem, right, in the data, mm-hmm. not just more generically where we don't see specific investment. We also have to be clear about roles. And, you know, this is a difficult thing because we, as a core safety net organization, want to do everything, of course, to take care of families in our community. But in this particular space, there's so much complicated interrelationship with the state and with, of course, educational institutions. Mm-hmm. And we have to partner with. And one of the challenges in our, you know, there's pros and cons, but one of the challenges in our county is the sheer number of educational entities in this county. Now, there's negatives to having a mega gigantic school district as well, so don't get me wrong, but it's many districts, many community college districts, and they, of course, have very important roles, not just purely from an academic perspective, but also as pretty comprehensive service providers to families mm-hmm. that mm-hmm. overlap substantially with our responsibilities. And you know, and not to surface a whole separate conversation, but this is where our relationship with the Office of Ed, our relationship with districts, all these other pieces matter too, and you know, have to be part of the conversation on what right. we do here, because our community's collective investment in this space isn't solely the county piece. It is all of these and how we work in coordination for effective service delivery to the same families is really critical. Absolutely, and I'm looking forward. I know we'll learn later this month about some expanded initiatives that keep the county working closely with all 31 or 32 of our school districts. And just to say one of the things that I'm most excited about, Sarah, in the work that you're leading is the fact that it is not siloed, and that you are pulling from every department. And we saw that work. We were together this morning in the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council meeting, and that same work is happening across probation and social services and law enforcement and school districts to really look at challenges that seem to result in kids coming into contact with the justice system all too often, all too early, and looking again cross-sector can really help us hone in on where the levers are that will actually make a difference. And what I would just kind of throw in here is that I know that we're soon going to be having some overhaul or relooking at OBA and procurement, and I'm hoping that they will
have watched some of this process and some of maybe even the juvenile justice coordinating to see how we can work across departments and in their cases vendors and contractors to make sure that we're making meaningful changes. I would say, just for myself, what I would be looking for is to see systems that lead us to awarding more contracts and using more services that are local to our community and with vendors and contractors that represent the population of our community. Because really, whether you're social services or procurement, I feel like we all have a role in helping to ensure that all of our residents have the opportunity to thrive. And what you're leading with, Sarah, is just a really good model. So all of that to say thank you very much, and I'm happy to move approval of the report.
Happy to second that motion. And, Sarah, we've had some conversations about the children's budget as well. And I just wanted to share some of that I do want to see a point where we're able to draw some, have some really deep analysis and able to identify some themes or wins or successes from our investments. And that really does hinge upon, from my conversations with you and Daniel Little, is that we still have challenges in defining what success looks like for the families that are engaged with our systems. And just to hear your thoughts about how we can help solidify or further just nail that down. Like, what is a win to a family that's engaged in our system?
Thank you, Supervisor. So I think this is a really great conversation. I think what the children's budget and also what resources like the children's data book give us is a lot of information that oftentimes is going to lead to more questions. And one of the ways to understand kind of what we're looking at in terms of this question around need, we can look if we take, for example, the question of how much we're spending on food benefits, and then what the need is in terms of income level of children, and are we reaching all of the families that we need to with the food benefits program, for example, with children. If we feel like there's a gap between the reach of the county services and the eligible population, then I think what we want to do is go and talk directly or hear directly from families about what they need, and if there's barriers, or do they in fact, maybe they don't need the benefits, maybe they they're not convenient, they need transportation. So that I think what ends up happening sometimes is when we talk directly with communities, with families, we find out information about how we may need to adjust our outreach or partner with other systems to provide better access or provide kind of additional resources that may not be held by the county but may be held by a school district, for example, or maybe held by a city. Perhaps the family is getting food supports through free lunches and they don't need as much in other spaces. So I think a lot of what we want to unpack is what are we hearing from communities, and they'll tell us what's working and what's not working. So it's developing that trust, I think, also, and that's one of the great things about working in local government is you can actually go and work with partners in the community to hear what's needed. So to me, I think that the quantitative data around the service numbers, the service categories, and then what we understand from the census level data is a starting point, and we need to engage in regular communication with residents to understand more about what they're interested in and how we can do a great job in serving them with the resources we had. So I think that's something we talked about. We've talked about, Supervisor, and I think that's a kind of a critical component of working with the information and improving our services.
Yeah, and I just, Sarah, you and your team live this world, and I welcome your perspectives and analysis of what observations you're able to draw from the data, and through your level, in comparison to census data, and just if at the end of the day, it seems like we're throwing ourselves on top of the same challenges over and over again. That's in part the never-ending need, right? Like need is so great, and as the world continues to change and the way it is that need will continue to grow. But are our efforts, our investments working? And I feel like the inception of the children's budget was to help us be able to answer those type of questions. And I think that's a part of getting there is gonna be, yes, more questions, but also our county experts weighing in and giving us your observations, what you think this means and what you think it looks like in the trajectory that we're on. And I'm really interested in knowing, at what point do we ask our families, what does success look like to you? How do you define a thriving family where you are in your life? Yeah.
I think we do that along the way. And I think James referenced that we do have some of these pilot programs where we're really kind of investing in a service very deeply, maybe with one community. Those pilot programs give us a really good window into working directly with families to understand more, and with our service, with our maybe community-based organizations, if we're working with a school on a pilot, as we are, for example, with some of the behavioral health services. It gives us an opportunity to get a much more kind of direct understanding of what's needed in like a sort of a case study scenario, and then we can make recommendations from that. I think sometimes we bring recommendations that we have in a pilot to the system partners and figure out how do we want to kind of permanently and in a systems way ensure that we're providing these services together. So I think the recommendations, when we identify a need or a gap, the recommendations come from the advice and expertise, oftentimes of some of the leadership in different areas of the county, to help us figure out how, because it's oftentimes not one thing that a family or child needs, but it's multiple things. And so we work together to kind of identify what supports are needed, what we have that we can draw from, and what may be missing. So I think we take the information, we find the gap, and then we develop the recommendations through partnerships and the expertise across the county and with our colleagues in schools and cities and nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And this is a charge that I hear you also present and discuss at CSFC. So I feel like there are a lot of CSFC vibes here. Thank you. There's a motion to receive the report and a second. Colin?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Jung.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, item 6 was placed on a consent, and we are moving to item 7, and that is to receive report from the Facilities and Fleet Department and Behavioral Health Services Department relating to behavioral health facility expansion efforts and progress.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm joined by Dave Berry from Facilities and Fleet Department and Megan Wheelahan, Deputy Director of Behavioral Health Department. We have a brief report for you today. Just wanted to highlight 4 sort of updates or additions to this report. The first is, at your request, we have added to Attachment A and a summary of the total number of individuals that might be served annually by each facility, by program level. And we've added to Attachment A. We feel like probably Attachment A can take no more additions, but happy to continue to modify and iterate if it's still a little cluttered for you. When it comes to behavioral health treatment facilities, you may recall we have approximately 430 beds added or in progress. Once fully operational, those will serve about 6,000 individuals per year. In addition to that, we have about 720 shelter beds or temporary housing beds that the county has contributed to. That includes recovery residences, that includes shelters that the city of San Jose might have put into operation, but the county helped fund. And once all of those temporary shelter beds are in operation, they'll serve about 2,300 individuals per year. Also, in this report, we have provided an update on the Community Care Preservation Program, Community Care Expansion Program, which is a state grant. We receive about $8 million to help improve and sustain the operations at licensed residential care facilities. We have completed our solicitation process and are beginning the contract process. Once those dollars, the funding source those dollars will support about 12 facilities across the county and 500 residential care facility beds. With that, I'll pause for any questions.
Thank you. Colin, are there any public comments?
There are no requests to speak.
Oh. Vice Chair, I turn to you first.
Thank you very much. I have no more additions to Appendix A, Attachment A. I very, very much appreciate the adaptations that you have made, the iterations going forward, and I think being able to call out the number of patients served through each bed is really critical. I've just heard too often people believing that one bed equals serving one person. So thank you for that. Really appreciate seeing those numbers continue to tick up. You mentioned it just now in your verbal report, Key, shelter beds. Are those shelters that specifically provide mental health services?
Some of them specifically, but obviously some have a combination. So we include in our Attachment A the Monterey and Branham project, which is the emergency interim housing project that the city of San Jose implemented, so that will serve unhoused individuals. And as you know, there's many individuals who are seeking shelter or receiving shelter do have self-reported substance use or mental health needs.
Absolutely. But to be clear, when we're talking about our 500-odd bed goal, we're talking about specific range of acuity for mental health or substance use disorder treatment.
Yes, when we speak to our 530-bed goal, we speak to our goals around behavioral health treatment facilities. So we don't include the temporary housing, temporary shelter.
Right.
That's a important bonus, if you will.
Thank you. That's what I thought was the case, and just wanted to make that clear. And those are absolutely important as well, but they are separate from the specific behavioral health expansion goal. So thank you for that. Are you finding, as these facilities begin to come online, the collaboration that you need with the various cities, including expediting permitting processes, accelerating project timelines, or addressing any other administrative barriers?
I think we are experiencing good collaboration with the administration of some of the cities. For example, I think there was a concern maybe a month or two ago about a project expansion under Pathway. Their executive director informed me that they had positive meetings with the administration and the planning department and have gotten things back on track, for example.
Oh, good. Do we have a new opening date?
I believe whatever opening date is in there is the most updated one, but I can double check.
Okay, thank you so much. Since the quarterly report was given at the full Board of Supervisors meeting, I haven't yet seen on our social media or communication pages evidence yet of a campaign to really share information about our progress and multiple very significant investments. Is that in process?
Supervisor, that is in progress. My apologies for the delay. We had hoped to begin to engage the board offices on their input on that. We have not been able to do that, but we'll try to expedite that for the
That would be great. I think it is particularly important now in advance of budget workshops, different city budget conversations, just so that everyone has the same understanding of how and where we are investing in the role that county government is playing here. I know we're doing a lot, and I definitely say this every meeting, but we have to tell our story, and we have to make sure the public and residents understand what we are doing and how we are working to expand services.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Supervisor, if I can add just one thing on the
please.
temporary shelter. One of the reasons why we include temporary shelter in here is that in some cases, we have funding sources specific for unhoused individuals with behavioral health conditions for example, the Behavioral Health Bridge Housing
Right.
Program. And some of those dollars are going into temporary shelter projects throughout the county, for example, at the Palo Alto site.
And do those temporary shelter sites have on-site mental health services?
They have on-site support services, and we're working with each site to determine how we can best make mental health or substance use services available, accessible. You know, sometimes the best way to provide those services is actually through our primary care visits, VHHP.
Sure.
So we're working with them.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for this report. I really appreciate attachment A, and we were able to also draw. Me and my team were also able to draw and identify that of the list there are 6 locations in District 2, serving an estimated 1,594 clients annually. And I'm sorry to say that I kind of got ahead of myself, and after the last quarterly report at the board meeting, my office reported out through our social media channels all the gains and the additional beds that we're adding to our supply. Yeah, but just to further echo, y'all, I feel like to say that the county is doing a great job is an understatement. I feel that our county is doing more in this area than any other county. That's not to say that we're perfect. So, for all my online viewers and members of the public, that's not me saying that our job is done, but it is continue to push that we have to brag about the work that we do and what we're able to accomplish in the beds that we're adding to the supply out there. So even though we are maybe going rogue and reporting out ahead of a communication plan, that communication plan is still very much needed to make sure that we're on the same message and on a topic that's highly complicated and complex. So I just want to thank you for that. And then as part of the communication plan and the engagement with the board offices, opportunities for us to be able to identify the number of beds and individuals we're capable of serving in our specific districts, I think will be extremely helpful in how we communicate that. Yeah.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I welcome a motion to receive the report.
So moved.
All right. Second, Colin.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item 8 is receive report from the Office of the County Executive relating to the fiscal year 2025-2026 Master Contract List Guidelines and Process. Hi, Key.
Hi, thank you, Key again. I'm joined by Matthew Hada, our procurement director. For the last 20 years or so, we have brought forward to first FGOC and then to the full board what we call a master contract list and resolution. The purpose of this process is to help expedite or facilitate the execution of primarily expenditure agreements or amendments to expenditure agreements, mainly. And these are mainly service agreements that we consider to be routine, meaning that they've been approved by the board. Typically, it's for some type of human service. And typically, it's been approved for a year with up to 4 one-year extensions. And so there's a process to just renew those. And you may have received in the report that on average, we bring a list of about 220 or so agreements for the board's consideration after we go to FGOC. And for this fiscal year, we're anticipating about 165 expenditure agreements and a few revenue agreements. With that, I'll pause if there are any questions.
Colin, I'll turn to any public comment on this item.
There are no requests to speak.
Okay. Vice Chair?
I have no questions on this item, but thank you very much for the report.
No questions on this item, as I thank you for the explanation and that this is a fairly routine report that ensures that we are renewing contracts in the most efficient and effective way. But looking at this item, what I think of is our recent disparity study and our goals as a county organization to make sure that our dollars are also being spent and in a way that's reflective of our values. And I'm speaking specific to supporting small, minority owned businesses. And this report makes me think of that. And I would love to hear from, since we have our procurement director and also Key here, like where are we best suited to have that conversation and discussion?
Yes. Thank you, Supervisor, for that interest. After the completion of the disparity study, we brought back to FGOC last fall an outline of a procurement strategic plan that would address not just some of the findings and key considerations of the disparity study, but all of the concerns that have been raised through various reports, the civil grand jury reports, the management audit division. Since the fall, we've been working with our community, our stakeholders, Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits, other organizations, to refine that procurement strategic plan. We'll targeting April or May to come back to the full board. And in that strategic plan, as we highlighted in the fall report, we wanted to establish a small business enterprise program and policy that would help us address some of the disparities with a focus on public works and construction, because there's a lot of spend there. And of course, all of this is around policy and small businesses and outreach, because we are constrained, of course, by Proposition 209 that limits our ability to contract with organizations based on certain factors.
Mr. Hada, do you have anything to add? I want to not put you on the spot, but certainly would like to afford you the opportunity.
No, just simply to add to the strategic plan. Although we're planning on bringing it to the board for approval in April, we've already started a lot of what I call goals 2 and 3 relative to response to the disparity study. We've initiated an RFP for a consultant to help us with that SBE program focus on public works, minor public works, and as well as increased our outreach to our community-based organizations, looking to receive feedback as far as how we can support them, both administratively as well as contractually. And that work is already started.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
Thank you. I want to understand a little bit more about the Small Business Enterprise Program, specifically with regard to public works and construction. Is all of the work, can all of the contract go toward small businesses? How are we kind of allocating opportunities and not funding requests, kind of procurement opportunities?
Sure. Maybe I'll summarize a couple in points or intention of the small business policy that I think we previewed in the fall. And in this effort, this is really about how do we establish some preferences or additional scoring for contractors that may bid and include small businesses as part of their proposal.
And would that include all contract opportunities or just certain sizes or certain categories?
Can I make a suggestion? So I think, when is the report back on this program scheduled?
Yeah, we're thinking about April 22nd meeting in April.
Okay.
So, I just want to make sure that because we're trying to tee up some specific recommendations with definitions and other things, and this item is related to the MCL, so I just want to make sure we're staying on topic on the item. But the broader legal landscape has shifted a bit too in this space, which doesn't directly affect small business preferences at all. But it's worth noting that the federal administration has now repealed all of the actions, some of which date back to the 1960s, associated with promoting diverse contracting for transportation and other federal contracts and funds. And so that has an impact too. But I think we are moving forward with a small business program with some specific recommendations for bidding preferences and beginning that work in a public works context. And I think it probably makes sense for us to be able to tee that up in the context of the actual report with that material.
So I'm happy to hold my questions until then. You piqued my interest and got a little bit ahead of myself. Before the report is published in the agenda, you'll have had opportunities to engage with stakeholders and get their feedback.
Yes, absolutely. We've done that. We did that before we came to FGOC, and we've continued that over the last few months.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for, as the kids call it, the side quest to today's discussion, and I look forward to the report back to the board. So I invite welcome a motion to approve report or receive report.
So moved.
Second?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and we are now at item 9, and that is to receive report from the Procurement Department relating to actions taken by the county's purchasing agent or designee in fiscal year 2023-2024.
Good afternoon again, supervisors. Matthew Hada, Director of Procurement. I've submitted the report on the fiscal year 23-24 purchasing agent actions relative to all new procurement contracts. It also includes the no cost and revenue MOUs, as well as the one-time standard purchase orders. With that, I'll pause to answer any questions you may have.
I'll turn to the clerk to see if there are any public comment.
There are no requests to speak.
Vice Chair Ellenberg?
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions either. Thank you so much, Matthew, and thank you, Key. Thank you. Motion to receive report.
Second. Just mix it up a little.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10, receive report from the Finance Agency relating to annual fixed assets inventory items that were not located.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Olai, Director of Finance Agency. With me is Annie Tom, Assistant Controller Treasurer. This afternoon you have before your annual exercise of cleaning up and updating our fixed assets countywide. This is opportunity for us to work with the departments and make sure that those assets are thoroughly accounted for, and then we use the opportunity to also update the financial system. And we're here for any questions.
Colin, are there any public commenters on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
Vice Chair Ellenberg?
No questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Margaret, for this report. I understand that the finance agency is the reporting body, and that the identification and locating of fixed assets is really is only as good as how it's reported to the finance agency. I know from in looking at the report, there are 755 assets pending further investigation that have an original cost of over $9 million. Over the grand scheme of things, I know that cost can depreciate, but in the current economic landscape that we're facing, every dollar counts, and I just would love to hear your thoughts on how do we better track the equipment. And from my own experiences of exiting offices, I know that that it often comes down to user error of how we report and how we move one item from one spreadsheet to the next. But would love your thoughts on how we can tighten this process up.
Very good question. And I believe one of the things that we've been looking at is working more closely with the departments to make sure that when we have transitions similar to what you've explained, there is a proper process by which departments are letting us know that, either submitting information, looking also at some help through technology to be able to track those, such as barcodes or RFIDs that could assist us in the process. I think the biggest thing is really education and training so people know the value of those items and they're also able to make sure that we have proper documentation for them. As you rightly said, some of this value over the years, through depreciation, some of those values do go down. So the best thing on that end is really to make sure that departments are also proactive in notifying the controller's office of any change or any missing items, and that they're using the proper documentation for them as well.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a path towards being able to close out the pending and research of the 755 assets, especially those that have been not identified for 20 years or so?
So yes, the attachment you see is one of the vehicles that we use in cleaning those up. And we have to go through the county executive to explain what those items were, how much time departments have spent looking at those items and looking for them, and then using that opportunity to, once we've made a determination they're not there, and more importantly, the book value in terms of how much it costs after depreciation, it makes it more compelling for us to be able to receive the approval from the county exec to now remove those from the financial system.
Thank you. And does that scrubbing process happen on an annual basis or on a regular basis?
It does. Several years back, I want to say, I don't know, maybe a decade ago or so, we had some challenges with the fixed asset inventory process, and since then, the process has gotten much, much, much better. That's not. Of course, we ideally want there to be nothing on the list, right? But if you look at, for example, the items that are being that were written off this year, had in-service dates ranging from 2012 to going back to 1995. Had an original cost at that time of acquisition of $60,000 and had all been depreciated down to zero, so no book value at all. And in an organization of our size, there's a trade-off between resources spent trying to track something down and what the thing might be. And in many cases, the most likely thing that probably has happened as a practical matter is that the item was disposed of but not cleared from the system. So in other words, something broke or something was, otherwise replaced as obsolete many, many, many years ago, but not actually cleared from the system, so it's still listed as an asset. That's almost always the most common reason that there's something that falls in this list. But we have to stay vigilant because, of course, these are public assets, and it's important that overall as an organization, we're not in a position where there's significant assets that we don't have track of. And so departments do this inventory on a regular basis, and the finance agency has a responsibility for overseeing that process. I will say, given our experience recently with a large corporation entity associated with inventory, I won't name any specific names, but we've been surprised to discover that private entity has had pages and pages and pages and pages of sometimes very valuable items that they are unable to locate as part of their fixed asset inventory. So this is a challenge for any large organization, and it's one where I feel like we have actually made some very meaningful progress in the wake of those concerns, again, about a decade or so ago. And because of that, We sunshine this every year. We're fully transparent about it every year. This is on a public agenda because it's important that everyone can see, we do the inventory, we're reporting on what we see, the finance agency independently scrutinizes it, nothing's written off without my approval. So we go through those pieces, and that's something that you don't see from a private entity or a nonprofit entity, or candidly, most governmental entities. I don't think we've ever seen, for example, the state of California's, fixed asset inventory list and what they can't locate, or many other jurisdictions. So we have to do this. We have to be on top of it. It's important. But given the size and scope and magnitude of the organization, we want to make sure we find everything we can find, and then there's a certain threshold where at some point it's not worth the additional expenditure of resources to try to seek that last piece of something and figure out what might have happened. So I think we're very aggressive. I think we have to continue to be very aggressive. We'll continue to bring this item to the committee every single year because we have that commitment.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Margaret, and your team. I appreciate the vigilance, and thank you for this presentation. Discussion was very edifying for me. I look forward to seeing this report next year. Okay.
Thank you.
I will move a receipt of the report.
I will second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 11 is to receive the monthly state legislative report from the Office of Intergovernmental Relations.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I am Monica Tong, Program Manager 3 with the Office of Intergovernmental Relations and the Office of the County Executive. Our Deputy County Executive, David Campos, is in Sacramento as we speak for a bill hearing on one of our sponsored bills. So I apologize that you only get me today.
We are lucky to have you, Monica.
Thank you. As you know, sorry, bear with me. I am doing both things at the same time. Intergovernmental Relations, commonly referred to as IGR, provides a monthly report on state-level legislative work to FGOC. Please note that the slides in your packet reflect the point in time when they were created and submitted, but I will share orally the most recent information. In the state legislature, policy committee season is here. March and April are the time where committees are deep diving into bills that affect that subject matter area, and committee season is the opportune time to engage legislators and their staff on their bills. A few key upcoming dates of importance are coming up in May, and you'll see them here. I'll just highlight a few of them. May 14th is the deadline for Governor Newsom to release his May revision, and May 23rd is the last day for fiscal committees to hear and report bills to the floor, which is also known as Suspense Day. So that means that appropriations will either send bills to the floor or hold them and essentially kill them. Quickly on our sponsored bills, the Senate and Assembly lowered the maximum number of bills members can carry over the 2025-2026 session to 35. It was previously higher. For example, in the State Assembly, it was 50 bills in the past. This increased competition to secure bills this year, but thanks to early action by our Board of Supervisors in November 2024, IGR was able to engage legislators early and secured authors for 3 legislative bills this year. I'll touch on them very quickly, but SB 261 is authored by Senator Wahab and co-sponsored by the Civil Prosecutors Coalition. And this bill aims to encourage businesses to satisfy their outstanding judgments by increasing transparency and tripling penalties for chronic non-payment. SB 261 will be heard by the Senate Committee on Labor, Employment, and Public Retirement on Wednesday, March 26th, and after that, it will be heard by the Senate Committee on Judiciary. AB 243 by Assemblymember Patrick Ahrens is co-sponsored by the Santa Clara County Office of Education and is being heard by the Assembly Committee on Higher Education as I speak. The committee is hearing the bill today, and it began at 1:30. I was watching it, but one of our secure track youth from the probation department is providing testimony in support of that bill today. This bill increases access to affordable higher education for systems-involved youth, including justice-involved and those served by the child welfare system. As these youth prepare their educational goals, they often face obstacles that can hinder their pursuit of higher education, including things like two-factor authentication. And this is a challenge when our young people don't have regular access to a personal cell phone. So this bill is attempting to help them through their higher education pursuits. If AB 243 passes out of higher ed today, it will go to Assembly Judiciary next. AB 1025 by Assemblymember Gail Pellerin was an intent bill until it was amended yesterday and authorizes a new tool for immigrant caregivers called standby guardianship that allows the caregiver to choose another adult to take care of their child or children if they are subject to an adverse immigration action, including detention or removal. Existing law provides several options for families at risk for adverse immigration action, but each presents some limitations. This standby guardianship option is modeled on policies from New Jersey and Maryland that prioritizes the rights of the custodial parent to support simplifying family reunification, hopeful family reunification. This guardianship model does not require caregivers to file anything with the court ahead of this adverse immigration action. AB 1025 will be heard by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary soon. It has not been scheduled quite yet. Moving on to our co-sponsored bills, the county has co-sponsored 2 bills so far based on our work last year and alignment with the legislative policies document. The county is a co-sponsor of SB 33 by Senator Cortese. This is a follow-up to his SB 333 last year that would establish the California Success, Opportunity, and Academic Resilience Guaranteed Income Program. Our GBI program manager, Melanie Jimenez Perez, will be testifying in support of SB 33 tomorrow when it is heard by the Senate Committee on Education. The second bill is the county, in partnership with Rural County Representatives of California, RCRC, is co-sponsoring AB 632 by Assemblymember Greg Hart. This bill will streamline code enforcement procedures and is a follow-up to our partnership with RCRC last year on AB 491. Unfortunately did not make it through the process. Moving along to the Office of Healthcare Affordability, OCA, was created in the Healthcare Equality and Affordability Act. OCA has 3 main purposes: slowing healthcare spending growth, promoting high performance, and access market consolidation. OCA has an 8-member appointed board, and in early 2024, the board discussed a 3.5% revenue growth target for all sectors, including hospitals. Since fall 2024, the board has been discussing a sector target just for hospitals, with interest in an even lower target growth for high-cost hospitals. The county is a member of the California Association of Public Hospitals, who push back on high-cost hospitals as they would have included our public hospitals, even though we serve a majority of patients on Medi-Cal and Medicare. After CAPH's advocacy, the updated methodology from last month's report does not include public hospitals in the definition of high-cost category. This is helpful, but the board will take action on the methodology and lower spending targets for high-cost hospitals during its April or May meeting. IGR will continue working with Amy Carter and her team at Santa Clara Valley Healthcare, as well as our contract lobbyists, to monitor the OCA actions. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Monica, for that presentation. We're so happy to have you here. So, I'll turn to Vice Chair Ellenberg for any comments or questions.
That was super interesting. I didn't know about the last piece at all with regard to the high-cost hospitals. So thank you for that bit of education, and very much appreciate your entire team here and in Sacramento.
I echo those sentiments. Thank you, Monica, and to the team for just really working so hard with our partners. And I want to give a shout out to all of our delegation in the State Assembly and the State Senate for their bills being put forward that really aligns with our values and what we're trying to accomplish here. And thank you, as always, for our presentation that really speaks to the most pertinent issues affecting us right now. So with that, I welcome a motion to receive report.
So moved.
Second.
And just for the record, there are no requests to speak. Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, items 6, 12, 13, 14, and 15 were accepted on consent, so we are done with our agenda. We will adjourn to the next regular meeting on Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 at 2 p.m. right here in the board chambers at 70 West Heading. Thank you.